This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Well, I'll say hello to my fellow colleagues that are waiting for the meeting to start.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope it's a beautiful day in Simi Valley. It's a beautiful day.
It is beautiful here, and I hope it's likewise where you are, Art.
It is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Hopefully the wind is over.
I pray you're right, but in the desert, it's always windy.
Well, that's what cleans things out for you.
And it does. And we have beautiful skies and sunsets because of that.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm a little bit surprised they haven't started. I thought they were starting the meeting.
Well, they obviously started the announcements. I see that there's some vacant chairs across that dais. So my guess is they're powwowing elsewhere for a moment.
Good morning, all. This is Ryan Wolf at SCAG. They are still wrapping up the Executive and Administration Committee. And so those folks who you're not seeing up here are in that meeting and will be here as soon as that ends.
Thank you.
And thank you. They kind of need to start this meeting, so we understand. Not a problem.
For everyone online, looks like they just finished, so just give us a few minutes and as they fill in.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. My apologies for our slight delay. Our executive committee meeting ran over a little bit this morning because we also had the executive director's performance evaluation. So we are here now, and I will call to order our meeting of the Energy and the Environment Committee for Thursday, April 3rd, and we're starting about 10 minutes late. So our meeting is now called to order. As a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. Vice Chair, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. Everyone, please rise. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd just like to confirm, Madam Clerk, that we do have quorum.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have
All
quorum.
right, thank you. So this brings us to our public comment period. This is a time when anyone from the public can comment on items that are within SCAG subject matter jurisdiction, but that are not listed on the agenda. Do we have anyone wishing to give public comment this morning?
I see no raised hands.
All right, and there weren't any public comments received written?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Madam Chair, I do see a hand raised online.
Okay.
Teresa?
Hi, hi, my name's Teresa. Are we discussing the item that's on the agenda today? Can I make a comment?
If it's for an item that's on the agenda, we would ask could you wait until we get to that item and we'll ask for comment specifically on that item.
Sure, will do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any items that we need to reorder or prioritize differently? Okay. With that, then that brings us to the election of chair and vice chair. Legal counsel, would you announce the nominations for the EEC chair that were received prior to the March 26th 5 p.m. deadline?
Of course. We received one nomination from Rick Dennison of Yucca Valley. No other nominations were received.
All right. And then you want to give the instructions,
Okay.
please?
So thank you, everybody. In addition to nominees received before the meeting, SCAG's rule allows for nominations from the floor. The process for nominations from the floor and the election are as follow. A nomination does not need a second. A member can nominate themselves. Please raise your hand to be called upon and announce your nomination. After additional nominations have been received, if applicable, council will repeat the names of the nominees. Okay, so is there anybody from the floor that would like to nominate themselves or another member at this time? There are no additional nominees from the floor. So again, the nominee for EEC chair is Rick Dennison of Yucca Valley. I will now
give him 3 minutes.
Yeah, if you would like to make a statement, you're welcome to. Or
well, I'll just say it's been approved on the committee, and I just see it as another piece of SCAG and full.
Member Dennison, would you mind just hitting your mic?
Oh, yeah, so others can hear. Thank you. Once again, I'm Rick Dennison. I'm from the town of Yucca Valley, and I do really enjoy this committee and the goals that have been set for us for a smaller part of SCAG. And originally, I had wanted to get involved in the leadership here, and so I just continued to try that journey to get to this point. I really look at the equity that's provided by SCAG as a whole for our entire region and all the other subregions and the counties and the differences between those. And I've really tried to make sure that all the areas are blanketed and have good representation. I do that through this committee. I do this through the regional council and through SBCTA, which is another organization that I'm vice chair currently. So I think today it would give me the opportunity to help guide our mission forward, and I'll have a difficult time keeping from previous Luis and Jenny currently with their leadership. I'm going to work diligently to be a good representative for this committee. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So we will now vote on the count.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Who else? I mean, are you termed out and are you moving up? I'm confused. We need chair and vice chair, and
Yes. So, well, I was gonna talk about this during comments later, but I am being nominated for second vice chair of the regional council. So I am ineligible to serve as chair of this committee. And I don't know if Lauren.
Yeah, I was voted off by West Side Cities COG, so I won't be on the regional council.
no.
So
Sorry.
this will be my last meeting.
Oh.
So,
Madam
thanks.
Chair, I'd like to move motion for Mr. Dennison, please.
And this is Brian Joseph, Chino Hills. I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion by Ramos and second by, I missed somebody from Chino Hills.
Brian Jost, sorry, council member.
So we have a motion and a second. Clerk, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Anna Beltran? Anna Beltran?
Yes.
Thank you. Art Bishop?
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
Margaret Clark?
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite?
Yes.
Ned Davis?
Yes.
Rick Dennison?
Yes.
Carmen Hernandez?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Sherry Horn?
Yes.
Britt Huff?
Yes.
Brian Jones?
Yes.
Joe Kelmick?
Yes.
Elaine Litzer?
Yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson?
Aye.
Biani Lopez?
Yes.
Lauren Meister?
An enthusiastic yes.
Yasmin Imani McMorrin?
Yes.
Thank you. Daniel Ramos?
Absolutely, yes.
Suli Saro?
Aye.
Patty Senecal?
Yes.
Thank you. Tamala Takahashi? Tamala? Connor Trout? Connor Trout? Connor, thank you. Stephanie Bergen?
Yes.
Dale Welty?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion for chair passes with 22 votes for Dennison, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions.
Congratulations, member and incoming chair, Dennison. And with that, we will move on to the election of the incoming vice chair. And just as you say the nominations, will you also let everyone know when the new positions take effect? Thank you.
Good mornings. We also received one nomination for the EEC vice chair. It was received by Daniel Ramos, City of Adelanto. These positions will take effect at the next meeting of the EEC. In addition to nominations received before the meeting, SCAG's rules allow for nominations from the floor by the previously described process. I won't reread those, but at this time, if anybody would like to nominate themselves or another member for the position of EEC vice chair.
I don't see any additional hands raised in the room. Are there any raised online?
I see none.
All right.
Art Bishop's was raised. Did he?
I was going to make a motion for Daniel. Thank you, though.
All right, so we will take your motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Oh gosh, we have multiple
there
seconds. I will take Margaret Clark's second.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. thank you
I'm
very
sorry,
much.
before we do that, I just wanted to see if Mr. Ramos would like to make any
Oh, yes.
statement.
I appreciate that. So incoming President Dennison said everything I was going to say, right? So for the sake of time, I won't repeat it, but I do just want to take a quick second to thank, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair for the amazing job that you guys have done, leading this committee. Appreciate your mentorship, your leadership, your guidance. And I just look forward to, serving this body and continue to serve alongside both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll begin roll call. Anna Beltran?
Yes.
Art Bishop?
Yes.
Margaret Clark? Margaret Clark. Yeah, okay, that's all right. Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Ned Davis,
Yes.
Rick Dennison, Carmen Hernandez,
Yes.
Sherry Horn,
Yes.
Britt Huff,
Yes.
thank you. Brian Jones,
Yes.
Joe Kelmick,
Yes.
Elaine Litzer,
Yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Lauren Meister,
Yes.
Yasmin Imani McMorrin.
Yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Yes.
Suli Saro,
Aye.
Patty Senecal,
Yes.
Tamala Takahashi, Connor Trout,
Yes.
thank you. Stephanie Bergen,
Yes.
Dale Welty,
Yes.
thank you. Madam Chair, the motion for vice chair passes with 22 votes for Daniel Ramos, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions.
All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. All right. That brings us to the consent calendar. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on items that are on the consent calendar? I do not see anyone in the room. Are there any raised hands online?
I see no raised hands.
All right. So we will take, are there any comments from members on any items on the consent calendar? All right, seeing none, and I don't think I see any raised hands online.
None online.
All right, can we please get a roll call vote on the consent calendar?
Yes, anyone like to make a motion for consent?
Oh, yeah.
Kelmick and Ramos, thank you. Annabelle Tran,
Yes.
thank you. Art Bishop,
Yes.
Margaret Clark,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Ned Davis,
Yes.
Rick Dennison, Jesus Escobar.
Apologies, I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. Carmen Hernandez,
Yes.
Sherry Horn,
Yes.
Britt Huff,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Joe Kelmick,
Yes.
Elaine Litzer,
Yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Lauren Meister,
Yes.
Yasmin Imani McMorrin,
It's Yasmin. Yes.
thank you. Daniel Ramos,
Yes.
Suli Saro,
Aye.
Patty Senecal,
Yes.
Tamala Takahashi, Connor Trout,
Yes.
Stephanie Bergen,
Yes.
Dale Welty,
Yes.
thank you. Madam Chair, the motion for consent calendar passes with 22 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you very much. So that brings us, we have 2 informational items. The first is regional recovery and resilience in the face of disaster. And we'll have a policy discussion. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this first item? I do not see any in the room. I know we had one member of the public, but I think they might be on the second item. Do we have any members with their hand raised for this item?
No, I see nobody.
All right. So seeing no members of the public, welcome Kim Clark, Planning Supervisor for SCAG, and Fiona Graham, Planning Services Manager for the City of Arcadia will be speaking in a little bit. So,
good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. As Madam Chair mentioned, I'm Kim Clark in the Resource Conservation Resilient Communities Business Unit. And I'm going to be speaking on the resilience benefits of general plan safety elements, and then be introducing staff from the City of Arcadia to speak on their recent work. To start, we'll be looking at some of the requirements for safety elements, then recent state laws that integrate climate resilience in general plans. From there, we'll examine how cities are performing in meeting the requirements of specific statutes that address climate resilience, this being SB 375. Overview of SCAG's resources to support safety element updates, and we'll take a brief look at an example of a safety element, and then pass to the City of Arcadia for them to speak. So overall, safety elements identify potential dangers that could affect a community, including strategies to reduce risk by minimizing these dangers, thereby enhancing community resilience. They help plan for effective emergency response and recovery and enhance public safety by ensuring that development plans account for public safety considerations. So let's dive further into safety elements, which will be a refresher for most. Safety elements are meant to reduce the potential risks associated with natural and human-made hazards. These include minimizing the risk of death, injuries, property damage, economic loss, and social dislocation resulting from events such as seismically induced surface ruptures, ground shaking and ground failure, dam inundation, tsunami, and SAICH events, slope instability that leads to mudslide and landslide events, subsidence, otherwise known as the sinking of an area of land, liquefaction, such as when water-saturated sediment temporarily loses strength and acts like a liquid, additional seismic, geologic, and other hazards, such as slope failures, mineral hazards, volcanic hazards, hazardous materials, airport hazards, etc. Flooding events, such as rainfall-induced accumulation of water in poor drainage areas, known as shallow flooding, coastal flooding, storm surges, and sea level rise, and of course, wildfire and urban fire events, and risk associated with climate change, such as extreme heat and drought. The safety element must also include mapping of known seismic and geologic hazards, must lay out evacuation routes and strategies for maintaining water supply at peak load periods. There are fairly recent state laws that help inform these requirements, including AB 2140, which authorizes local governments to adopt a local hazard mitigation plan with the general plan safety element. In fact, integration of the local hazard mitigation plan in a general plan is incentivized through financing that covers local shares of grant-funded post-disaster projects. So these non-federal portions comprise about 25% of post-disaster projects. Alongside the California Disaster Assistance Act, this incentive helps cover all of that 25%. AB 162 requires cities and counties to incorporate flood management considerations into their general plans. SB 1241 requires the city to address wildfire hazard issues due to the presence of very high fire hazard severity zones. SB 379, which we'll talk about in more detail, requires the city to address climate adaptation and resiliency through the preparation of a vulnerability assessment. SB 1035 aligns the update of the safety element with the next housing element update, which will occur about every 8 years, exactly every 8 years. AB 747 requires safety elements to be reviewed and updated as necessary to identify evacuation routes and their capacity under a range of emergency scenarios. SB 99 requires the safety element to identify residential developments in any hazard area that has less than 2 evacuation routes. And then AB 2684 requires cities and counties to consider extreme heat hazards in their safety elements during the next update of their local hazard mitigation plan or general plans, starting January 1st of 2024. So this law was recently enacted in the last term of the legislature and applies now. So SB 379 in particular provides a framework for jurisdictions to address climate change by conducting a community outreach and engagement to better understand how hazards will affect residents, developing a climate change vulnerability assessment, which identifies climate-related hazards and areas of the community that are particular at risk, includes policies and strategies to improve a community's resilience to climate change, and then monitors implementation of these policies and strategies within the community. Now looking at our regional performance for safety elements, how consistent are the jurisdictions in this region with SB 379 specifically? So we can see that the majority of jurisdictions have updated their safety elements within the last 10 years. with the highest percentage having undergone updates within the last 3 years. Regarding specific compliance with SB 379, 78% of jurisdictions in the region meet the requirements, meaning they've engaged in community outreach on climate hazards, conducted a climate vulnerability assessment, and included climate adaptation policies and strategies in their safety elements. Jurisdictions in Ventura County are the most compliant, whereas jurisdictions in Imperial County often lack the resources to be able to be consistent with SB 379. One example of a compliant safety element is the city of Sierra Madre, which was recently updated in 2023. It integrates information and policies from the Sierra Madre Hazard Mitigation Plan, which includes climate adaptation and resilience consideration. It also addresses required factors from state law and focuses on recovery and risk reduction. A specific policy that helps advance the objective of providing adequate fire protection necessary for existing and future development in the city is to assess the impacts of increases in development density and related traffic congestion on fire hazards and emergency response time, and ensure through the development review process that new development will not result in a reduction of fire protection services below acceptable levels. So you can see that connection between safety elements and new development, and assessing as you go to make sure that new development doesn't present unsafety circumstances. SCAG has a number of resources to assist jurisdictions in integrating climate resilience into their plans and programs. First, we have the Southern California Climate Adaptation Planning Guide, which discusses several specific climate hazards for Southern California and includes a number of resources to assist jurisdictions, including model policies for general plan updates. We have specific curriculum for SB 379, which provides a step-by-step guide for updating safety elements, including strategies for ensuring climate adaptation efforts are equitable and inclusive, as well as examples of successful climate adaptation planning in various communities. Now we'll hear a case study from the city of Arcadia on their recently adopted safety element, which identifies, evaluates, and addresses local and regional safety issues through the establishment of goals, policies, and actions that can reduce the loss of life, injuries, property loss, environmental damage, as well as social and economic disruption from natural and human-caused disasters. Joining us is Fiona Graham, their Planning Services Manager at the City of Arcadia, and accompanying her will be the city's Fire Department Deputy Chief, Cody Serwin, who can help answer your questions after the presentation. And with that, I'm happy to pass to Fiona, who will be online for the presentation.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to present on this topic. As mentioned, the city did just adopt its safety element update December of last year, and so this has just been completed recently for us. And so I'm just going to give a brief overview of the process, focusing on climate vulnerability and adaptation. As mentioned, we have Deputy Chief Cody Serwin here, and he's going to be able to speak to hazards that are specific in the city, the integration with the local hazard mitigation plan, and other items like that. Okay, so also, I just wanted to mention that after this, I will send around a copy of the city's red line, the safety element update with red lines and the implementation plan. I think the red line copy is helpful because it will allow for people to see the changes that were made, not just the final document. And a lot of these changes were obviously made in response to those recent bills that the state has enacted. So that will be available for anybody attending the meeting if they're interested. So just a little bit about Arcadia, for those who aren't familiar with the area. We are located in the western portion of San Gabriel Valley, to the immediate east of the city of Pasadena. The 210, the I-210 and the Metro Gold Line runs through the city. We have the Arboretum, Santa Anita Park, the shops at Santa Anita Mall. The city is primarily single-family residential, but we do have some, fairly sizable commercial and industrial areas. In terms of climate hazards and other hazards in the city, we do have known faults that run through the city. We do have portions of the city that run up into the Angeles National Forest foothill area and hillside neighborhoods, so there are wildfire risks. And we are in the inundation area for a couple of dams, primarily the Santa Anita Dam. And we do have a couple of washes that run through the city as well, although those are all managed by LA County Flood Control District. So just in terms of background on the process, so as you know, most cities in the LA area, or all cities, I should say, we started preparing the housing element update in early 2021. As mentioned, the state does require now that safety elements are updated at the same time that a housing element is updated. So because we were beginning the housing element update, we also then started to look at what that would mean for the safety element update. The city contracted with DUDEC early 2022 to prepare the safety element. And we also were required to do an environmental justice element, which is a separate process that not every city is going to have to follow. But for us and a lot of other jurisdictions, both of those processes go through in conjunction with one another. We did prepare a negative declaration under CEQA. And as I mentioned, yeah, we took the safety element and the EJ through the process together. So for us, they were kind of integrated, and that's not going to be the case for every city. We primarily undertook the update, obviously, because we were required to, but the goal was to update the safety element and bring it into compliance with state law, specifically regarding SB 99, AB 747, SB 379, and SB 1000. And once again, those are regarding emergency evacuation routes, climate vulnerability assessments, and including climate adaptation and resilience strategies. And just as, I guess, a way of background, each city certified our housing element in February 2024, and then we took through the updates to the safety element and the EJ element in December of 2024. I know a lot of cities are doing all three of those together. We split them apart just because of the unknown timeframes with the housing element. And then for the city, our safety element was most recently updated in 2010 as part of a general plan update. And so it was definitely needing an update. As I've mentioned, we needed to do it because of the housing element and addressing additional topics. I wanted to make it clear that we were just updating the safety element. This was not a complete overhaul or a review. So a lot of the content that was in there was existing and just needed to be updated with new numbers and statistics and things like that. And then we filled in the gaps of those sections that needed to be completed in order to comply with those state laws. So just in terms of the city, once again, I'll probably turn this over to the deputy chief so that he can talk to this, but these are the climate hazards in Arcadia specifically. These are obviously going to be different in every city. For example, we're not a coastal city, so we don't have that as an issue, but I'm not sure if the deputy chief is available to talk to these specifically.
I'm here. So basically the climate hazards in Arcadia, as everybody in the valleys, I've seen an increase of the heat waves and projecting out over the next 30 years. Those are only going to get more and more extreme based on what the scientists are saying. And so we did put it in the safety element to add extreme heat. That was one thing that we didn't have in that safety element, which is also going to increase your wildland vulnerability, your urban face fires. And then they're also talking about the floods with the droughts, increased heat wave. Your soils aren't going to hold rainwater as well without the root base. So then you're going to see more flooding or debris flows, in which we also stated in there. And one other change that's happening is the state put out new mapping, which everybody should be aware of, as far as what it used to be as far as housing and acreage in a very high zone for wildland fires. They've broken that down into 3 zones now. It's very high, high, and moderate, which also will be in our local mitigation plan. When we update it in a year and a half, we'll have to increase those zones in that plan.
Thank you. And so once again, Dudek was our consultant on this project. They went through and did an analysis of their existing safety element to see what did comply, what additional content we needed to bring it into compliance. The outcome of that was that we ended up incorporating 12 new policies within existing goals. So these were existing parts of the safety element that we were just updating. And as you can see there, it was regarding earthquake preparedness, development in flood areas, reducing the impacts of wildfire, and emergency and disaster response preparedness. We also just updated a variety of just policies just for making sure that's up to date and current, because obviously it was 15 years out of date at that point. And then just a variety of other text cleanups because we had the opportunity. In terms of new content, we added 3 new goals and policies which were addressing resilience to environmental hazards. So we were focusing on minimizing the potential for loss of life, physical injury, property damage, and economic burden. We were trying to build a built environment that's resilient to extreme heat, and retrofitting infrastructure to prepare for increased debris flows. In terms of the safety element vulnerability assessment, we didn't do a standalone assessment that lived outside the safety element. I think some of the jurisdictions have done that. We incorporated it completely within the safety element, and this is very specific to the city. So if you're familiar with Arcadia, we do have a high non-English speaking population. We do have a higher aged population. We do have slightly higher numbers of renters as well, and we do have older housing stock. So these were all vulnerabilities that we identified that are specific to the city, and then our policies to address the risks associated with that were incorporated into the safety element and the implementation plan for the general plan. Yeah, this is just in terms of the process. So in terms of the way that we did it at our city, the safety element was a joint effort between development services and the fire department. One of the key components was to ensure that there was consistency with the local hazard mitigation plan. And we actually incorporated language in the safety element, adopting the local hazard mitigation plan by reference. For those of you who aren't aware, if you have a high fire hazard area, CAL FIRE does need to sign off on your safety element, and they take that through like a hearing process with them. Dudek processed all of that for us. And then we ultimately had public hearings at the Planning Commission and City Council in the end of last year with everything adopted. In regards to the local hazard mitigation plan, I'm going to turn that back over to the Deputy Chief as well.
So you touched on it a little bit, but the consistency across both plans is very important. So with the 2 plans, the local mitigation plan, you have to have federal sign off on that plan. Once that's federally signed off, then it has to be linked back to the state, which you touched on in terms of Cal OES has to sign off on it. And then you have to have the 2 documents linked together, and it all has to do with the public assistance projects plans or cost share. So in order for a city to gain up to about 25% of your costs back, you would have to have both these plans linked together. And so they have to be consistent. There can't be one message in one of them that states you're going to do these type of events and plan for it this way, and then your other plan is totally different. They all have to be consistent in what they're stating, and the process has to be followed. That's all I have on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one additional item of interest, I guess, that came up for us specifically, is we included language in the safety element adopting the local hazard mitigation plan, but we received commentary from the state after the fact that we needed to actually put a hyperlink in our document linking to our local hazard mitigation plan on the city's website. And then we had to formally adopt the local hazard mitigation plan into the safety element. And we ended up doing that after the fact because it wasn't done through that initial approval process in December. So I guess that's just a FYI for those of you who are going through the process, is that those actions all need to occur. And I guess just to, double check what will be required from the state, so you don't have to go back and do it retroactively like we had to do. And then of course, the implementation plan included some updates and new programs as well, following out from the safety element update. So we ultimately included 3 completely new programs regarding vegetation management, climate resilient public realm, and cool building design, and then updated a variety of actions within existing programs. And once again, I'm going to have that available for anybody that's interested after the meeting. And so that was it for the City of Arcadia. And if anyone has any questions, we're available now, or if you've got any follow-up questions, you're welcome to email me and I can get back to you.
All right. Thank you. That was a great presentation. I will take questions from the regional council. Is there anyone in the room? Member Saru.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. If the City of Arcadia has a climate adaptation plan, or would you consider doing one now that you went through this process of developing this component of the safety plan?
We don't have a standalone a document for that. Whether that's something that would be considered, I mean, ultimately that's going to be a policy decision by the city council and the directors. We haven't been directed to do anything in that nature.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious if you had one.
Thank you.
Member Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Fiona and Chief also, thank you for the presentation. This is great conversation. One thing that I've looked at is we have the SB 99, which is identifying housing with less than 2 evacuation routes. When we look at those models within a community like you've done, and you see something that doesn't comply, what's the threshold for that to apply? You may have housing that does not have that availability, and you would end up with a lot more roads, I would think, to try and meet that threshold. So is there something that you look at as far as density, importance, or something like that? And also for access of emergency services, did you have any issues you had to deal with like that to improve that circular evacuation routes?
Yeah, I'll respond on the land use side, and then I guess if there's any emergency response comments, I'll refer to the deputy chief. I guess we're fortunate in a way. We only have one relatively small neighborhood that it's already fully developed, and it just has that single evacuation route. So it wasn't something that we had an extensive issue with. We don't have the capacity or the ability to put in secondary evacuation routes. That it's already fully developed, and it's a mountainous area as well. It's all zoned single family or hillside properties, so there's not really going to be an additional kind of land use response that we can take with that. I mean, I think I just read recently that the state has stated that we cannot use very high fire hazard as a reason to disprove ADUs. So that's not something that we could, deal with in a like a land use response. So beyond allowing ADUs, which is just a requirement under state law, there's not really anything that we can do from a planning perspective to reduce density or to reduce that potential impact. And then I'll just turn it over to the deputy chief with regards to fire.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. Is you can touch on it with new development. You could talk about maybe adding more fire suppression efforts on the homeowner itself or the developer. But as far as changing the roads, we didn't take that approach because we don't own that land. But on the other side of that, what we have done is one of the items that we do is an outreach. So we're going to outreach to those communities and let them be aware that they have one way out. This is their route. This is their path. We also have a evacuation route designated so that we put that out to the public so they're aware. And then also using the county Genesis to evacuate parties or hold in place. That kind of information is put out quicker than waiting.
Well, thank you both of you for that answer on that. It's a challenge, I think, for many communities, and I like how you kind of prioritized those that may be in those areas. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Clark.
I have two questions that with the tragic fires that we just experienced, my city, Rosemead, is 10 miles east of Los Angeles. So I got phone calls from my friends all over the country. And I think one of the, and these are two unrelated, so I don't know if you want me to ask them one at a time or what. Okay, one at a time and then answer and then, okay. Since you just said about notifications of evacuation, and I was nowhere near the fires, thank God, but I got 3 notifications to evacuate. And my first reaction was, the boy who cried wolf. We've all heard that poem, and people are going to say, oh, well, it's not true. I'm not going to go anywhere. And I'm afraid some of those may have caused a couple of the deaths of people that were disabled and maybe didn't get notifications or false ones, or I don't know. So I would like to know, are they looking at that now, since this was something that did happen, to incorporate that in your plan?
I can't speak to the specifics behind the ones that you're speaking of, but I know that the program was developed within LA County. I think there was one evacuation notice that they said was an error in terms of the zone that they collected. So they can circle around an area and only send out that message to that area. It sounded like it went all the way across the whole platform, if that's what you're speaking about. I was aware of that. I received it as well to my phone, and I had reports of people that I know that actually started evacuating that weren't even anywhere near the fire zones. And so, yeah, that I can't speak to why that happened. I know they put something out, but I don't remember the specifics of it. We do our best in terms of locating which, and I can speak for the city of Arcadia, is which zones we're going to identify as evacuations mandatory. And we'll put those zone numbers in that message, and you'll see it on that message as, oh yeah, I'm part of that evacuation zone. And that's the best I can say. It wouldn't be specifically in your local mitigation plan or your safety element. It would just state how you're going to make that one of your goals, is to get information out to the public.
And just to follow up on that, would you have a database of the people in your city that are disabled and would need special notification? I think there were a couple people that nobody went and got them and they couldn't get out.
We do have information such as that for specific areas that one of our partners is Edison. Edison has people that are potentially needing power because they have ventilators at location or something to that effect. So we have that type of list. I'm not aware of any list of specific disabilities that would warrant us needing to get out there. But one of the things of a mandatory evacuation is we tend to send personnel, whether it's emergency personnel or other, to door knock and see that we have an evacuation. And we try to do that prior to event. Obviously, some events, the fire's coming so rapidly, we do our best. And that's what we can say.
Thank you. And then my other one real quick on vegetation management. A landscape architect mentioned to me that some of the plants that are drought tolerant, and that's good because we get droughts, but they store, the reason they're tolerant is because they have oils in them and they survive, but they burned a lot faster. So is there anything looking at what kind of plants, we're recommending and others that aren't?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly, it's in the plan to look at vegetation, allowable vegetation, size of vegetation, all of those things in the urban interface. whether a city takes that to what type of plant you can put there would probably be up to them. The one thing that the state is doing is putting together a zero-scape, basically telling you 0 from the side of your house to 5 feet out can have no vegetation. And what does that look like? And you have pre-existing oak trees that are protected, if you will. These type of things are going to have to be addressed when it comes to city by city. I know the governor has signed something that would assist in managing those type of trees in the event that for years and years you are unable to touch them based on their protected species. And you can petition to remove a hazard, let's say, that potentially for years was unable to based on that type of species, unable to touch it. But you can petition those things, but those wouldn't be in the safety element nor the local mitigation plan at this time.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Did we have any members online that wanted to ask any questions?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Just a quick question. What was my quick question? You mentioned the evacuation routes were created. One of the questions that we've been asked is whether or not we should be publishing those for the public. So how are you handling I mean, you worked with the public in establishing the routes. How are you letting or not letting the public know what those routes are?
So if an instance would be the Bobcat that we had several years ago, the local fire, we let the public know through social media, through any platform that we're messaging, which route we'd like them to take out if we have fire resources working in that area. Luckily, with this fire and the Eden fire recently, we weren't impacted right away, so we got messaging out to evacuate. Most people were evacuating on their own. It wasn't mandatory at that point. As we moved closer to the fire front, moving towards Arcadia, we did include it to a mandatory evacuation to 2 of the areas identified by their numbering. Once that happened, then we sent the police officers out. And we didn't have any congestion problems. We didn't have any issues as far as evacuation routes being impacted and or emergency resources being delayed based on traffic patterns. So it really wasn't an issue for us, and we didn't feel the need to actually put out what the evacuation route was.
Okay. And then just one other quick question. Does anyone know if because I noticed in the initial presentation that there are parts of our region, like Imperial County, that have had challenges, I'm assuming because of sizes of staff and budgets. Are there resources available for them or for any smaller jurisdictions that are having challenges updating these plans?
The Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation does provide climate adaptation planning grants pretty regularly. So that's something that would be available. And what we try to do is provide information resources just to lighten the lift.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you all for the wonderful presentation. I think really quick.
Very quick. The presentation will be available to the members, correct?
Yes, and I believe there's also some documents that are going to be
perfect. Thank you.
Shared. Yeah, all of the recordings of these meetings get shared to SCAG's. I think it's YouTube, right?
Yes, they go up, and then the presentation from Arcadia wasn't in your original packet, but that'll come out with that document, this presentation that Kim gave, as well as the document that was referenced. Yep.
Yeah, it'll be sent out. Thank you. All right. With that, we will move on to our second presentation, which is from the South Coast AQMD on their proposed heater and water heater rules changes. So I believe we have Heather Farr who will be giving the presentation. Before you begin, I do need to ask if there's, I believe there's a member of the public online that wanted to comment on this item, and it looks like there's a member in the room, or it's a member of the public in the room as well. So can we start with the person online if they're still here?
Yes, Madam Chair. We actually have we have about 4, it looks like. First one is Teresa.
Hi, good morning. The chair lady and also the committee. I would like to, my name is Teresa Lee, and I live in Diamond Bar, and I'm a member of several organizations, and obviously we are being put to aware that there is a proposal to go zero incentive on the water heater and the heat pump. My address to the committee is that I understand that there is a very strong desire to engage and to have clean air quality, and the motivation is to remove 6.8 tons per day of nitrogen oxide. However, the cost that goes along for this particular proposal it's not being assessed. And number one, that because it's going to be utilizing electricity, so therefore the proposal does not address the increase on how many additional power plants that requires in order to drive this proper proposal to move forward. And number two is that if we are to go for clean energy, of which that currently we have about 50% of clean solar or wind energy, but then we have another 50% that's still utilizing the gas, oil, or coal to generate the electric energy. So if we were to move the energy source from from the clean energy, which is the solar or wind, how much environmental or ecological system impact that's going to be imposed, because it takes up land and also it creates havoc to the ecosystem. So I would like to see if it's being addressed in this regulation. Additionally, it also has the mitigation fee. Who's going to be collecting the mitigation fee, and how are this going to be impacting the cost for the replacement? Because that's all like overhead to the community, to the people who owns a home or needs to have a replacement of their system. And that's something that I would like to see if the committee can address that. And and additionally, oh, I know, because it involves the electricity, so the grid is going to be, I know that currently with the solar and wind, the grid is being
Excuse me, ma'am.
heavily drained.
Teresa?
Excuse me? Yes.
We're at 3
Okay.
minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So my time up?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you. That's my my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just as a reminder for everyone, we only have 3 minutes per speaker. And so please be conscious of time, and we will be keeping track over here of how long you've gone. Thank you.
Okay, next comment from Rita Loof.
Yes, good morning. My name is Rita Loof. I'm the Director of Environmental Affairs for RADTEC International. And RADTEC is a nonprofit trade association with over 800 members nationwide involved in ultraviolet electron beam light emitting diode technology. Our processes are used in manufacturing operations, ranging from printing and wood coatings to fingernail polish and dental applications. They are all electric and are not formulated with any pollutants or toxics. We are very concerned with the impacts of Rule 1111 and 1121 on our industry. Our facilities have already converted from solvent systems that use natural gas devices. So our businesses have already invested in electrifying their manufacturing processes. The emissions reductions that we have voluntarily generated without any AQMD requirement far exceed any reductions from our facilities having to convert to electric heating. Despite the emission reductions that our businesses have provided to the district, they've gotten no credit whatsoever from AQMD and will be faced with the burden of having to increase their electric load at the facility, which may be already at a maximum given that the manufacturing is already electric. Slide 4 of the AQMD presentation assumes that 6.8 tons per day of NOx will be reduced, but that assumption fails to analyze the emissions from diesel generators and gas-powered generators that would be used during emergencies like fire or power outages. Rule 1111 and 1121 is bad public policy for businesses like ours that have already implemented zero combustion manufacturing, and we are hoping the district will revise the proposal to include an accommodation for good environmental stewards who have voluntarily reduced emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Deborah Kam.
Yes, thank you. Hello, my name is Deborah Kam, and I'm the Southern California Chair of the Office of Administrative Hearings Special Education Advisory Committee. As an advocate for children, I'm shocked at the lack of notice that school districts have received regarding Rules 1111 and 1121, which will result in a huge financial burden and require layoffs of teachers and the reduction of services to children, even those with disabilities. Santa Ana Unified School District, for example, just announced a layoff of over 300 teachers due to a $187 million budget shortfall. Other school districts are also experiencing budget issues due to declining enrollment, and in fact, 2,300 layoffs of teachers and nurses, statewide school nurses, have already been announced. Many schools have to shut down when there are rolling blackouts, since the lack of heat or air conditioning creates health risks to children, teachers, and staff. So where are the studies showing additional learning loss due to school shutdowns because of these blackouts created by an overstressed electric grid? Or children who will suffer educational loss due to having fewer teachers? And where are the studies showing the environmental impact of the emergency generators that will no doubt be used to compensate for these blackouts? It is of note that since this is not a state mandate, local government agencies such as school districts will not be reimbursed for any of these costs. This will lead to a huge financial burden to schools and other government agencies. So where are the studies showing the financial and educational impact, which will result in potentially thousands more teacher layoffs? These rules pose a huge threat to the health, safety, and well-being of our children and teachers, and will financially devastate our school systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dave. Dave, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I am a resident of Res Rancho, Cucamonga, and I work in Chino Hills. I learned of the Rule 1111 and 1121 through the Orange County Register article that brought it to the attention. And I have been engaged in attending meetings about it since then and learning more about it. A few of the things that I was very surprised to learn was that one, the public is not aware of this. The efforts that have been made to bring awareness to the public are not working. And everybody I'm talking to has never does not know what's coming and the costs that are associated with it. And in the register, it was estimated that it could be up to $20,000 to put in the new heater and the electric heater. And one of the people on the committee that I went to was sharing that they lived in San Clemente and had received an estimate that was actually $12,000 just for the retrofitting of their electrical system to their house, which did not include the unit itself. So that's very alarming and concerning that the expense this is going to bring to residents unknowingly when their gas water heater goes out and they need to replace it. I also attended the Chino Valley School District's board meeting. It happened to be the night that they were voting on the resolution opposing these rules, and was surprised to learn that in the recent fires, how they had to go out and purchase many generators to keep their schools open and running because of the blackouts associated with the electric companies turning off power. Because even though they weren't in a fire area that was threatened, they were connected on the grid to areas that were. And so in order to keep their schools open and the irregularity of the blackouts, they had to go and immediately dispense of general funds. It was in the millions of dollars to purchase the generators to keep the schools open and running. And so this just brings a lot of concerns that haven't been addressed by the South Coast Air Quality District and are going to bring great burden both financially and pragmatically to our communities. So thank you.
Thank you. We have one last caller. I don't see a name listed, but the last four digits of the phone number is 5085. Would you like to? Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Hi. Good morning. My name is Jessica Martinez. I am a school board member for Altaloma School District, and I was to speak regarding the proposed rule 1111 and 1121, and the impact that it will have for school districts. A lot of school districts are unaware of these proposals, and in particular, yes, last night we had a board meeting, and the board had the difficult decision to eliminate transportation because of the budgetary cuts. So today, I'm asking for consideration for school districts where there is language in the proposals that will not impact school districts, because currently, as written, I don't see where these rules will not apply to school districts. They will apply, and that comes with a financial burden that, school districts right now are facing, having to make budgetary cuts that directly impact students. Not having transportation is a detriment to students and to families. So I asked that is analyzed and that there is language that excludes school districts from having to comply with these proposed rules. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And was that the last online speaker? All right, and then I believe we had one member of the public here in the room that wished to give comment. You'll have 3 minutes.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair, honorable electeds. I'm Pete Marsh. I'm a community member from Long Beach. I'm proud to be nominated by my councilwoman and SCAG First Vice President Cindy Allen to sit on our Community Resilient and Sustainable City Commission. I'm speaking on my own behalf today. I'm here to talk about green, but not the kind that you expect. This kind. I support these rules. Why? We commonly hear that these rules are unaffordable. We just heard lots of propaganda-fueled objections. The reality is we can't afford not to implement these and similar rules. Globally, humans emit around 50 billion tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases per year, 75% from fossil fuel combustion, coal, oil, and gas. The energy from those fossil fuels has contributed greatly to the advancement of human productivity, prosperity, and even human health over a couple of centuries. We have also learned that those fossil fuel emissions come with serious downsides, financial as well as health. The World Bank estimates that climate change imposes $6 trillion of indirect costs per year on the roughly $120 trillion global economy. Air pollution causes 8 to 10 million premature deaths per year. That's 0.1% of humanity that we're willfully killing through our combustion of fossil fuels. So therefore, the IPCC concludes that we must, by mid-century, reduce fossil fuel combustion to net zero, most likely through around 80% reduction in fossil fuel usage and 20% carbon dioxide removal. So in that huge global context, I focus my time on buildings. Why is that? Well, I'm now mostly retired. I dedicate pro bono support to multiple nonprofits working on climate solutions, especially phasing out gas appliances from our existing building stock. I chose existing buildings specifically because they're among the most difficult to decarbonize sectors in the whole economy. They're up there, in my estimation, with long distance shipping and long distance aviation. And the magnitude of that challenge is nationally, we have around 120 million dwelling units. 2/3 of those use gas-fired appliances. They contribute around 10% of total national greenhouse gas emissions. Until we bite the bullet and switch the machines in those existing buildings from fossil-fired to zero emissions, we continue to increase global warming and its impacts. So fuel switching at end of life, which is the way sort of enabled and encouraged by these revised rules, is the most affordable and most equitable manner possible for updating our buildings. Am I close to time?
You are at time, yes.
Okay. So there are numerous incentives available to help us with the transition and the CapEx change. The grid can handle it. The grid has been decarbonizing rapidly, and please support the rules. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So what we have before us today is an informational item. I would ask Heather Farr, the Planning and Rules Manager for South Coast Air Quality Management District, to now give your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, is the microphone on? Is red on? Red is on. Okay, I see. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today to speak about these proposed rule amendments, as well as our Go Zero incentive program. Just really quickly before I get started, these rules are regulating residential sized appliances, so they won't be impacting our school districts or our businesses or commercial. These are really based on residential sized. We have different rules that regulate different water and space heating appliances. They're based on rated heat capacity or BTU per hour, and these for our 1111 for space heating, it's about a 5,000 square foot house is the maximum one of those units would be. For the water heaters, like an 80-gallon water heater, maybe for 4 or 5 residents in a home. So these are really for residential sized. We had earlier proposed to increase the applicability for our space heating. There are larger commercial sized units that are currently not regulated, but we're going to propose to do that at a later date. So in a different rulemaking, when we will be reaching out and working with the schools and talking to our commercial entities. So I just wanted to clarify that before I started. Okay. Okay, I got it. Okay, so just really briefly, some background about the South Coast Air Quality Management District. We are the district responsible for the air quality of the 4-county region of Los Angeles, Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. We historically have the worst air quality in the nation, so we do push to have really strict regulations to meet our federal air quality standards. We are obligated in our state law to meet. We do regulate stationary and area sources of emissions. Area sources are smaller non-permitted emissions, such as these space and water heaters that I'm going to talk about today. So we have our air quality management plan. That's really our blueprint for how we're going to meet our national ambient air quality standards. We amend these and draft these every few years. We are currently in non-attainment for 4 ozone standards and 2 PM 2.5 standards. These rules will reduce NOx. NOx are precursors for both ozone and PM 2.5. We do risk federal sanctions if we do not meet our air quality standards. So our 2022 AQMP, which was adopted December 2022, addresses ozone and the high levels of ozone. And we do need significant reductions of NOx emissions in order to meet our goals. We do have emission reductions proposed for industrial, commercial, and the residential sectors. And that 2022 AQMP plan was our first plan that really focused on transitioning to zero emission technologies wherever it's technically feasible. So that kind of begs the question of why are we regulating space and water heating? Had a caller talk about the utilities and how much they pollute. But we have had regulations, NOx emissions on residential appliances since 1978. We periodically lower those emissions over time, and the manufacturers adjust to those changes. And the reason that there are such high emissions for these appliances is there's so many of them. There are 10 million, we estimate 10 million space and water heating appliances in our jurisdiction, which emit 6.8 ton per day of NOx emissions. And just for reference, when we look at all of the utilities, they're down to 2 to 3 ton per day. You look at all the petroleum refineries in our jurisdiction, they're emitting 4 ton per day. And when you even consider passenger vehicles, that is 7 tons per day. So it is a really significant amount of NOx being emitted by these appliances. And again, we are required to take all feasible measures. And the amendments, if they pass, we will achieve about a 6 ton per day reduction. And that's only the second highest NOx emissions we've achieved in any rule project over the past decades, second only to our petroleum refinery rule. And these technologies are available. They have been around for a while, especially in the space side. The water heating heat pumps are a little newer, but we did have an incentive program where we were able to transition 2,500 homes to heat pump technologies. So I just want to talk a little about what heat pumps are. They are really the most common zero emission technology that we assessed. They have pretty high market penetration, and they really are an air condition that can provide both heating and cooling. They do take the place of 2 appliances. So one heat pump can replace both a furnace and an air conditioning system. They operate on electricity, and they're very efficient. So they are less expensive to operate just because of that efficiency. There are other technologies as well. It's not just heat pumps. There's solar. There's some emerging fuel cells, which are interesting. And there's also electric resistance, which is also zero, but has higher operating costs. So heat pumps are really the preferable route. So talking about the proposed rules, again, they apply to residential size, gas-fired furnaces and water heaters. We initially had proposed to establish future effective dates whereby once a homeowner had to replace their appliance, then they would have to transition to zero. So it was kind of 2 triggers, a future date. We were looking at 2028 and 2029. When you had to replace your appliance, only zero would be available. However, we've received considerable feedback on that proposal. We've gotten over 12,000 comment letters, which is probably the highest comment letters we've ever gotten on any project. We've presented to numerous cities and COGs to try to get the word out. This slide says 30, but I realized this week we've done 6 already. We've been in Redlands and San Bernardino, San Gabriel Valley, Paramount and Fountain Valley just this week between me and my small team. So we are trying to get the word out on the proposal and the proposed changes that we've had based on the considerable feedback that we've received. So again, our original rule concept came out in October, but this past February made some changes. Like I mentioned, the first concept was that zero emission standard. We had a lot of concerns about affordability and choice and older buildings that could maybe be challenging to retrofit. So we were trying to build in a bunch of compliance flexibilities, but it got really complicated and challenging to enforce. We really changed the concept and moved the onus instead of on like the installer and the homeowner, but put it on the manufacturer to establish manufacturer compliance targets. This slide also talks about our original proposal to expand the applicability but we've changed back to the existing applicability, so they're smaller residential sized appliances. So this slide shows our revised rule concept, where we'll establish sales targets for the manufacturers to meet starting in 2027 with a 30% target on selling those zero emission units. And those targets will go up over time. We're going to tie those targets with mitigation fees that will help encourage the transition to these zero emission technologies, as well as fund our incentive program that I'm excited to talk about at the end of these slides. So when it comes to the manufacturer targets, I know I'm talking about space and water heating. They'll be separate. So there'll be a separate target for the space and the water. And the manufacturers can go over those targets. They're more like performance targets, but then they will have to pay a higher mitigation fee, which I'll talk about, I think, on the next slide. And the fees will be assessed at the end of the year to try to defer that kind of pass through of the manufacturers passing through those costs onto the consumers. And so the change of the rule concept really does try to address the affordability concerns. If you have an installation that does have a high cost, that gas unit will still be available. It really addresses the consumer choice because it's allowing those gas units to continue to be sold in our jurisdiction. And then concerns about technology readiness, or is the grid ready for additional electrification? Having those longer timelines will just give more time for the technology to emerge, costs to come down, for the grid to be ready. So when it comes to the proposed mitigation fee, we are proposing about a 1% fee on each unit that is sold. Again, these units they're major household expenses. They are appliances, and they last for 25 to 15 years. So we're proposing to have a $100 fee on the furnaces with a $50 fee on the water heaters. Water heaters do cost quite a bit less than when you think about your HVAC in your home. Water heaters are a much lower cost. And we're proposing to have a higher mitigation fee for those sales that go above the target. So again, a manufacturer can sell above the target, but there will be a higher fee that is imposed. We have changed our proposal a little bit. It's going to be $500 for space heaters that are over the limit and $250 for water heaters over the limit. That was in our latest proposal that we released Tuesday. And then those funds will be used to fund our Go Zero program. So they will go directly back into the consumer's hands, so we could really help the homeowners to transition to these zero emission technologies. So do I want to talk a little bit, just touch on what those costs that we're talking about, if a homeowner does choose to install those zero emission technologies. When it comes to like the HVAC, so your furnace and air condition, to switch from an HVAC system to a heat pump, those actually cost about the same, and you'll actually probably save on the operational costs. You might even get some rebates to do it. So that's actually a very winning scenario. Because of that, actually since 2021, heat pumps have outsold furnaces because it is really a good solution. These are clean, efficient appliances. But if you only have a furnace and you're replacing that with a heat pump, there is a big premium. It's like adding AC to your home. So that does cost a lot more. And it's about $8,000 in additional if you're going from just a furnace to a furnace plus AC. But you get the added benefit of having air cooling. And then on the water side, these are newer technologies. So those do have about a $2,000 increase. Again, there's incentives that are available, including the one that we're going to launch soon. And we are projecting lifetime utility savings just due to the efficiency of these appliances. And we will have a tech check-in with these sales targets. The manufacturer will have to report real data to us. So we'll have a really good insight into what is getting sold into our jurisdiction, whether it's gas or electric. So we can monitor the implementation, and we're going to propose to go back to our board or our committee to give an update in case we have to make any adjustments along the way. Okay, so the last topic I want to talk about is our Go Zero incentive program, because we do know cost can be a barrier to transitioning. So we want to make sure that we can get funds into the hands of the residents that need it the most. So we're starting our pilot program. We're going to hope to launch it this spring. And it's starting with a $21 million for funding. And the idea is we're going to try to target 75% of those funds into our overburdened communities, the people who really need that help the most. And there are 5 different elements to the program. So the slide shows the different rebates that we're proposing. So single family, multifamily, as well as small business. We are looking at helping small businesses to transition to zero as well. And it shows a range of rebates because we're going to have a higher rebate amount for our overburdened communities. And then in addition to those rebates, we're also going to have installer training in all 4 counties just to help train up the workforce so they're comfortable with these newer technologies, as well as outreach. You know, we've gotten a lot of concern during this process, during the rule amendments, that we're not getting the word out enough. So we have 2 different third-party contractors that are going to help with outreach in the 4-county area, as well as help with application assistance. There are other rebates out there, help them to stack these different rebates so they can maximize their savings. So as far as next steps, as I mentioned, Tuesday, we released our latest draft rule language, including our supporting documents, our staff report. We have 5 appendix with response to comments to those 12,000 comments that we received. Also, our socioeconomic impact assessment was also released. That's available on our website. We are scheduled to have a public hearing in May, though at the last Stationary Source Committee meeting, they discussed delaying it until June because of a conflict actually with the SCAG retreat. So they're going to decide that tomorrow, Friday, at our board meeting. And we're hoping to launch the Go Zero program in spring. So I think this is the last slide, just shows links, QR code to get to all the information that we have on our website. We have a new clearinghouse with all the information that we have available. Again, staff report, a socioeconomic impact assessment are all available, as well as the staff contacts if you have any questions. And
All
that
right.
is it, if anyone has any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I see Member Escobar has his.
Thank you. So 2 quick questions. One is related to the current utility entities, specifically Edison, which services a majority of SCAG's land territory, obviously, as well as PG&E. Have you had buy-in from them? So that'll be the 1A. And then the 1B is, have you had pushback from Sempra Energy, which owns Southern California gas? Loaded question, I understand, but.
So Edison actually did provide a support letter to us on our original concept, which was the complete transition. So they have worked with us. We've been in discussions with them about grid readiness, if the grid is able to accommodate these new building appliances, and they are supportive. They think the grid can handle all this, the building electrification. You know, the California Energy Commission, who oversees the local utilities, they have energy reports that they put out. In the past, they've looked at increasing supply for electric vehicles, and now they're looking at building appliances. So they are aware and they are ready for these changes. So SoCalGas has submitted comment letters to us as well that were critical and just asking questions and clarifications. And we've worked with them very closely when it comes to our cost assessment. So they have been very involved in our process as well.
All right, thank you. Member Sorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I wanted to clarify the enforcement. You're saying it's the manufacturer. So does that mean once the timeline to start, they're just clearing the retail store, everybody's clearing their shelf to make sure that the compliant device is what's going to be sold moving forward and installed?
So the way the new plan will work, you'll be able to have both gas and electric. So those will still be in the stores. You'll still be able to buy either of those appliances. The manufacturers will report to us at the end of the year and indicate how many gas units they sold and how many electric units they sold, pay those mitigation fees, and kind of reconcile if they've achieved the sales goals. We also, including having an additional higher fee if you exceed the targets, we also have a discounted rate if they exceed the zero emission targets. So these rules are really enforced through the supply chain. They always have been, through the manufacturer, through the distributor, through the installer. So that's how they have been regulated.
Yeah, as a follow-up question, so I mean, I'm just hearing a lot of concerns about it from residents, but this is really, you know, encourage, and hopefully there's incentive program for people, but would they be fined if they didn't?
Homeowners?
Yes.
No, again, this is enforced through the supply chain. Manufacturer, so a retailer, they could be with this new concept, again, both would be. So if it got to the point where we had like a 0, you couldn't sell it, then we could go to a retailer and say, no, that unit can't be sold. But the way this is designed, it's really on the manufacturer to work out and report to us what they've sold into our jurisdiction each year.
Okay, because I'm continuing to hear concerns from residents, and I'm just wondering, when you do your education and outreach, you know, my next question is if they're also, how many other languages they're done in?
Right. So that was an important element when it comes to our Go Zero incentive program, when we're trying to get the word out. And when we do that outreach, that will be out to the community and the residents. We're going to do multiple languages. That is a priority for us. And it is to get information out, not just about the rebates, but about the upcoming rule changes and really about the benefits of these technologies.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Member Meister or Vice Chair Meister.
Thank you, Chair. So I just have 3 quick questions. One is, this is still proposed amended rules, so that means that there is the possibility for additional language or different language, or for you to be able to address concerns that have been raised.
Yes, these are still proposed. They will likely be heard by our board in June. So there still is time to make changes, yes.
Okay, and then there was a concern from school district, residents about the school districts. Is that because there is no language that formally exempts them? And is there the possibility of including language that exempts the school district?
So the way our rules work, they're really based on the size of the equipment. I mean, nothing would preclude a school from, installing 12 residential water heaters, but even under this concept, if they did put in 12 residential sized water heaters, they could still install those gas units. So we don't really, again, because it's size related, we don't say where you can or cannot put in this type of equipment. But typically schools are much larger than like 5,000 square foot, or have more than 4 or 5 people utilizing the domestic hot water. So they just wouldn't, those type of units would likely not be installed in schools.
Right. So that sounds like a communication issue that it needs to get out.
Yes, and we did, like I mentioned, we revised our proposal. We were considering looking at those larger sized units that could go into a commercial. So now that we've revised it back to the original applicability down to those smaller units, yes, we are here. We are trying to get the word out as much as we can. And when we do start working on those larger commercial size, we will conduct additional outreach, go to the schools and get feedback as we start, developing those regulations.
Great. And then last question, you said that you had 12,000 comment letters. Could you give us an idea of like what percentage were positive and what percentage were negative?
Right. Most of the comment letters we received, especially the ones in opposition, are against the mandate. It was really against establishing that future effective mandate. So, a lot of the ones that are in support we didn't get many in support for our original concept as well. But most of the support letters are for the new concept that establishes those manufacturer targets.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just so everyone knows, there are 6 of you wanting to ask questions, and means we are going to go over the time for our meeting. So I just want us to be okay. I saw one go down. So just want us to be aware as we ask our questions that we are coming up on the end of our time. Member Dennison.
Thank you. I'll make it brief. And thank you for your comments, Vice Chair. That was one of my questions, was what was the outcome of those letters? Mine kind of falls on a number that was stated. You've already done this conversion or process to 2,500 homes, residents?
For this, with our own program. So there are other incentive programs that have done considerable more conversion to zero emission technologies, but yeah, our furnace program got 2,500.
And so the final is the goal right now is setting at 10 million units. Is that correct?
In our jurisdiction for space and water, there are 10 million.
4,000 factor, correct? So on that, the biggest problem I have right now is, and you spoke about overburdened areas, and we have a lot of that in my area. And for disclosure, I'm in the Mojave Desert area of the AQMD. As I think it's the conversion part. When you talk about changing platforms for older homes that have been there for 40s, 50s, that's when they were built, and you're going from one system to another. These electrical connections to these homes may be sub 100 amp. They're not going to support this process, and they get wrapped up and rolled in. Very rural area, very few homes, not going to move the needle on the numbers, but they're being brought into the system, and it is an overburden to these people. I just want to say that clearly, and that's a lot of the feedback that you're getting that may be negative. So you have to consider the fringe, the underserved that we talk about, and truly we have equity in this system, that those that can afford it can do it if they want. I'm building a new home now, heat pumps all the way around, everything's there. It covers it,
Right.
but I have 400 amps to my home.
Yeah.
And so I want to remember everybody wants to participate if they can support it. So thank you.
Really appreciate those comments. And that is the main reason that we did change the concept to allow for those gas units, because there can be houses out there that are going to be challenging to upgrade. I will just say that any house that already has an air conditioning, if you can support an air conditioning, you can already support a heat pump for your space. The water heaters might add a little bit to the load, but now there are 120 plugins. You can just plug it into any outlet. So the technology is really evolving and making things more affordable and able to operate on lower amperage. Most houses with a 100 amperage panel can operate these. So we understand the concern, and that is why we made that change. And that incentive program will help as well.
2.5 and all that stuff. And what you're talking is stacking these loads. There's some people that are at the threshold now.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Welty.
A couple of questions. One on the furnace and AC to heat pump equivalent. Is there going to be any incentives on those? Those seem to be the low-lying fruit in this universe as far as the demand on the power and the replacement cost. Is there any incentives for those?
There's lots of incentives right now to transition to heat pump, not just the Go Zero program that we're working on, but Tech Clean California has incentives. There are still some federal incentives that are out there. So there's a lot of incentives available. And one of the pieces to our Go Zero will be having application assistance to help those that are applying to find those other incentives, whether it's state or local, that can be stacked.
So you can provide some sort of website where you can link to multiple sources to get, and we're going to communicate with the industry that installs these things. That would be important. The other thing is on this rebates, the 1,000 to 3,000. Is that per unit? Is that per house, or is that per water heater / furnace?
Per appliance. It's per appliance.
Per appliance. Okay. I just asked that when you go public, that all that's very clear, because there's a lot of positive about this, and there's a lot of negative, yet mind you, but there's a lot of positive things you can do that don't seem to be that demanding on the.
Okay,
thank you.
Member Clark, and then we still have 2 hands online.
Yes. My question is, do you have guarantees that this will not cost more to the low income residents? And one of my issues is that during the fires that we just experienced, we need to learn from that. There were so many outages, so many people without power. And one of the gals from AQMD even said she was glad she had a gas appliance because she could have a hot shower and whatever. So the balanced energy, I would much rather have you put the money into incentivize clean gas. SCAG took us out to Paris, California, where we saw where they're taking the food waste and making clean natural gas. And now with 1383, we have to recycle all that food. So I really think that this is not the right time to do this when people are hurting so badly. And even Karen Bass reversed the new electric mandates for her for the wildfire victims. So my question is that the guarantee, and just, that's what
we certainly can't guarantee anything on costs. Like the manufacturers set their costs. Trying to identify what the cost of these units have been really a challenge, because even if you're in your own home, if you were to get 3 different quotes, you'll get 3 different costs supplied to you. So that is a challenge for us. We cannot in any way guarantee what the manufacturers are going to charge for those units. We do hear you when it comes to the fires and those power outages. When it comes to your space heating, even if you have a gas furnace, it's not going to work with no electricity, because it does still have some electrical components and fans that require it to work. Many of the new water heaters, it is the same situation for those newer water heaters that will not operate during power outages. But thank you for those comments.
All right, and I do believe if they can keep them brief, we have a couple of comments online too.
Yes, we have to Art Bishop.
Yes, thank you very much. I have just 2 quick comments. Then I have a question for the chair and for Heather. I'm really concerned. We keep talking about in the state of California, we need more affordable housing. We need more affordable housing. And yet it seems like South Coast Air Quality Control just is really easy about throwing away fees. I know the fees in comparison to the average house sale of 800,000 for the median price is not it's not a big percentage, but it does keep increasing the cost of homes, single-family homes. I'm extremely excited that you're changing your May 2nd public hearing date, or you're thinking of changing your May 2nd public hearing date. On that, I would ask Heather and the chair, Heather, if you would be available, and if the chair, I think this would be a great presentation to bring forward at our May Regional Conference and General Assembly, and I would ask Heather and the chair if that's something that SCAG and South Coast Air Quality Control can achieve. Thank you.
I think I'd say that that would be a question for the team that's planning the conference. I don't know, staff, if you have.
Yeah, we'd have to take that request back and discuss it internally and get back to you, Member Bishop.
If we could, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
We have one last comment from Brian Joes.
Hi, thank you. And yeah, comment just to kind of piggyback on what Maggie had mentioned. Chino Hills, we're a community that, we have in the last, bout of Santa Ana winds experienced lots of PSPS shutoffs. And for just in my thoughts are, in a lot of ways, this is kind of like a false choice for our residents. It's either going with more expensive all electric appliances that potentially won't work when our power is shut off, versus paying more to keep with a natural gas alternative. So as a city, we voted to oppose 1111 and 1121, just purely because we've been subject to these shutoffs. And I appreciate that at least now there's an option and we're not being forced to go in one direction versus another. But in a lot of ways, I just think it's a false choice that we really don't truly have to make. So I know it's just a comment, but I appreciate all the work that AQMD has been working on it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for the robust questions and conversation today. And thank you, Heather, for your presentation. With that, I will move on to my chair's report. So last month, members of the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee did travel to Sacramento, and we had lots of great meetings with our legislators. We also had some presentations from various folks on a range of issues. When we were meeting with our legislators, we were obviously talking about issues related to resiliency and especially natural disasters, given the fires. It was top of mind for a lot of legislators. We also had a meeting with the insurance commissioner about fire insurance. And we spoke with legislators about the climate resilience districts that we had a presentation here on. And maybe whether they would consider some funding to help cities implement those, or support funding for staff to support the cities as they work towards that. And I will just also want to thank our incoming chair and vice chair. I look forward to working with you both as you move forward. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll make sure you both have my phone number before we leave. But any support that I can be to you both moving forward, happy to keep in touch. And I do want to thank my vice chair, Lauren Meister. I will miss having you here. I was looking forward to you taking this over. But I am very grateful for all of your contributions here on this committee and everything you just do in your city in relation to emergency preparedness. So thank you. Thank you. And I believe there's a Rachel, you have yes.
I just want to say thank you, everyone. And it's just been an honor and a pleasure for me to be on this committee and work with all of you. So thank you.
And Rachel, I believe you have one announcement.
Yeah, I will be brief. Thank you on behalf of staff to our outgoing chair and vice chair. It has been truly a pleasure to work with you both these shortish months, but your contributions will be missed. So Thank you. And we are certainly looking forward to working with our new chair and vice chair. And I just wanted to remind everyone, next month is our regional conference and general assembly, and hope you are all going. There are some cities who we have not received who their voting delegate is yet for the GA, so we'll be reaching out to them directly, but we look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you.
All right. Any brief final announcements from members? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting now. Thank you all for your participation, and hopefully I will see most of you in May at the General Assembly. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Good morning.